Hi everyone, it's me, your go-to personal and business finance coach. Welcome to another edition of Financial Talk Tuesday. So today we're talking about investment clubs. I'm going to be sharing with you what an investment club is, how they're typically set up, um, what sort of benefits you get from investment clubs, what are some of the downsides to investment clubs, and just generally tell you sort of what my opinion is as to whether or not you should consider joining an investment club. Okay, so let's get started. So what is an investment club? Well, in simple terms, it's when a group of people, it could be friends, neighbors, business associates, just a group of people who decide to come together to pool their money together in order to invest in stocks or securities. So that's what it is in simple terms. And investment clubs have been around for some time, although, in my opinion, they haven't really sort of gained the widespread popularity, if you will, that I think it has the potential to gain. And that's due to several reasons, which I'll talk about later in this video. But for now, let's talk about how they're actually set up. They're typically set up informally, and this is just based on a group of people deciding to come together to pull their money together, or they could be set up formally through some kind of structured partnerships. Okay, obviously to me that's always the preference, to set it up as a partnership, because in a partnership, all the members of the club get to participate in the investment decisions. Okay, and that way you feel a part of what's going on. You feel like your voice is being heard, and because your money is in this pool, you also participate along. Nothing is done in a vacuum, so to speak. Okay, there are cases where when they're set up informally, the club typically elects or designates like a leader to make investment decisions for the club, or they could elect like an investment committee where that committee is the one making decisions as to what to invest in. And depending on the country you're in, if the group or the club decides to invest in securities, then it needs to be set up formally because of certain regulations that such a club will need to follow. Okay. Um, as I said, depending on the objectives or how the club is being set up, the structure is going to look different. Okay, but typically, what it should look like, okay, if you're planning to join an investment club, you should make sure that the investment club has clear goals and objectives. And the reason for that is because you don't want to join a club because it's the latest fad or a trend. You want to make sure that your investment goals are in line with the club's investment goals and objectives. Okay. And also, you want to make sure that you're joining a club that has a clear organizational structure. So, who's leading the club? What is the sort of succession planning? What is the selection process in terms of the investment committee or in terms of who leads the club? You want to make sure that there are clear rules and regulations as far as the organizational structure is concerned. You also want to make sure that you understand the legal structure of the club. So if it's a partnership, which is most common when, or I would say the preference if you're joining a club, because you get to be a participant in the decision making. You want to make sure that there's a clear sort of legal structure. You understand what the legal structure of the club is. Okay, you also want to make sure you understand the membership structure of the club. Okay, if you're joining, what fees you're going to be you're going to need to pay maybe upfront, and what your monthly fees are going to be going forward. And I think I also mentioned that there's a clear sort of goals and objectives of the club. Okay. As I said, these are the things I would look out for if I'm trying to decide whether or not to join an investment club. But like I said, they could operate informally. It's not a requirement to have it set up as a partnership. It could be set up as a limited liability company as well. Okay. And also, in terms of what to look out for, you want to also make sure that you understand sort of the registration requirements of the club. Okay. So what are the benefits of setting up an investment club? One of the benefits, I would say, is the knowledge that you gain, okay, from joining a club like this, because they're typically people who have a finance background, who are interested in investing, who have a passion for it. I mean, the only reason they set up the club is because they think they can do better. They can manage their investments better, as opposed to going through like a brokerage firm. So you want to make sure that one of the benefits is getting that knowledge from an investment firm, investment club rather, sorry. So again, because they're typically people who know something about this and are trying to do what's best for them, okay? Another benefit is that although you pay monthly dues and fees, you don't have to pay the huge fees or commissions that you would typically pay if you were going through a brokerage, okay, firm. Not that those fees are like exorbitant or anything like that, but you do still pay fees. In comparison to investment clubs, they may not be that high of a fee that you would pay. And in some cases, who knows, it could be higher. It just really depends on the kind of investment club it is. But typically, it shouldn't be as high as the fees and commissions you would pay through a brokerage firm or to an investment advisor, okay? As I said, you gain a lot of knowledge because truly the sum of the parts is always better than, the whole. So different people coming together, you tend to get better sort of information. And because of that, they're probably making investment decisions that will yield a higher return for the investment club in the long run. Okay. So what are some of the disadvantages? Okay, because everything that has advantages also typically has disadvantages of joining an investment club. Some of the disadvantages is that you could run into is a lack of leadership in that investment club, and also a lack of real knowledge of investing. People sometimes start things because they think they know enough about it, and really they don't. So you want to look at the experience level of a club, and if you do your due diligence and your research and you notice that the investment management committee or the people leading the club do not have the requisite knowledge to lead the club, that's always a red flag. So I would say a lack of leadership or knowledge can be a disadvantage, okay, when thinking about joining an investment club. The other thing I would say is that some of the disadvantages is that sometimes investment clubs, they start off well and they have good intentions to begin with, and they have, similarly a good structure, but somewhere along the line, their investment strategy gets modeled. And that's because when you typically have a club with a large number of people, especially with investment clubs that have a lot of members, you're never going to find a situation where everyone agrees to do the same thing, okay, to invest in the same stocks or securities. Sometimes people deviate, okay? And in that case, what investment clubs do is the majority would carry the vote. And you're sort of the minority may feel left out, and you get angry, and sometimes you quit the club. And then your feedback to other people is that, no, it's not a club worth, joining and all of that. But typically though, you know, investment strategies get muddled up and people lose sight of the established goals and objectives. And it's actually one of the reasons investment clubs don't do well, is that over time people's goals and objectives change, and they no longer sort of are in line with the established goals and objectives, and things begin to fall apart that way. Okay, so a lack of investment strategy, a commitment to an investment strategy, is one of the things that could be a downside to joining an investment club. Another thing is that because investment clubs tend to be long-term focused, sometimes people don't see the results they're expecting, and it's not always due to the fault of the investment club or the investment committee or the choices they're making. It's because the market is, even, you know, in the last, if you look back the last few years, even within a 10-year span, you know, the market has been like volatile, okay? And things are changing so rapidly, okay? And if you're somebody who's thinking, okay, 10 years is a long enough time and you're not seeing the results that you expect, you may be tempted to quit, okay? And so for you, if you're that kind of a person, an investment club you may think is not worth your while. What I always say is, you know, you have to understand why you're joining the club. 10 years is a long time. And obviously, if you don't see results, you might be tempted to do something else or want to make other decisions that are right for you. Okay, but, you know, the market, you have to understand the market and what's going on in the market. And things have been very different in the last few years. So, again, that's one of the downsides of joining an investment club, is you may feel like your decisions, or you're being forced to make a decision that no longer meets your need or the goals and objectives that you set out for yourself. So those are some of the things that you need to know about investment clubs. So what is my take? I don't belong to an investment club, and it's for some of the reasons that I mentioned. There are actually some very good, very, very good investment clubs out there. But if you look historically, a lot of investment clubs don't tend to survive over time, and it's because of some of these reasons I mentioned. People's needs change, their goals change, their objectives change, and so they want to do something different, and then they start to quit the club, and then, you know, it no longer is that sort of group that you expected would sustain its you know, your goals for a long time. So that's why some people, and that's why I feel investment clubs haven't done well over the years. But there are some good ones out there. And if you do decide that you want to be a part of an investment club, please do your due diligence, do your research, make sure there's a fantastic leadership team, they're knowledgeable, they have the experience to actually lead the club, and that you understand the structure of the club that you're joining, making sure that, you know, if it's a partnership, that you're part of the decision-making process. And if it's an informal setup where you guys decide to elect, or the club decides to elect just, you know, a committee, understand what your role is going to be if you're not part of the investment committee. Understand the organizational structure, understand kind of the fee structure, the membership structure, the registration requirements, and all of that good stuff. Okay, if you find this video helpful, please share with your friends, co-workers, family, business colleagues. Okay, and if you know anyone who is interested in personal finance or business finance and has any questions for me, please feel free to ask him to connect with me on Instagram at financecoachme.com, or leave a comment if you have specific questions about investment clubs. Leave a comment below this video. All right, so with that said, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next week on Financial Talk Tuesday. Bye now.